All righty. All right, so today what we'll do is we'll start in our child's pose, bringing our toes together underneath of our butts. Bring our knees nice and wide, stretch our arms out in front of us, and just take a few breaths. Let that chest sink down in towards our mat. Close our eyes, just rest our head on our mat. Feel our hips slowly lowering down towards our heels. And then when we're ready, we'll just walk our hands around to the right, keeping our hips sinking down, reaching across our body with our left arm. And then slowly, little tiny steps with our hands, walking them all the way around to the left. And then coming back to the center, let's take a couple of breaths in our regular child's pose here. And then slowly we'll begin to walk our hands backwards, lifting our chest, but will only come so that our hands are just underneath of our shoulders here. Hips are still back over our heels. And then we'll tuck that tail, open up the low back. So instead of having that little arch, keep that open behind us. Pull the shoulders back, lengthen in the spine. Good. And then we'll take our left hand, reach it back behind our head just to touch. And then inhale, lift the elbow up toward the sky, opening up the shoulders. Little twist here, and then exhale. We'll just bring elbow to the other elbow. And then inhale, come up. And exhale, lower down. Little twists. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. Do a couple more. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. One more. Inhale up. And exhale, elbow to elbow. And then we'll come back, lower that left hand down onto our mat. And then we'll move over to the second side. Right hand can touch behind the head. Inhale, lift the elbow high. And then exhale, we'll lower down. And then moving with our breath. Inhale, open up. And exhale, lower down. Inhale up. And exhale, lower. Couple more. And the last one, we inhale up, open those shoulders wide, and then exhale, lower elbow to elbow. And we'll find ourselves back, both hands on the mat, pulling those shoulders back, tucking that tail just that little bit. Good. And then we'll walk our hands forward, find ourselves in a tabletop, bringing those knees underneath of the hips, and then we'll flex those feet and bring our hips back toward the heels. Open up in those ankles and in our arches. Good. Back to our tabletop. Fingers are pressing wide in towards our mat. And then exhale, let's round in that spine. Tuck our chin, tuck our tail for cat. And then inhale, we'll drop that tummy. Lift the heart for cow. Exhaling cat. And inhaling cow. With our breath. Let's do one more cat and one more cow. And then we'll meet together at neutral spine. Lengthen from tip to the top of our head, pressing into those hands. And now we'll go side to side. So we'll bring our hip and our shoulder toward each other on one side. And then we'll move over to the other side. Waggling our tail, moving our shoulders. Like our goofy little happy puppies. Do one more to each side. And then again to our neutral spine here. Walk those hands just a half a step forward so that we can bring our shoulders forward, and we'll find ourselves into a baby plank here. Tucking that tail, lengthening in the spine. Let those hips begin to sink just a little bit in toward the mat. Pointing our tailbone down towards our knees, not out behind us in the wall. Good. And then exhale. Let's lower ourselves down to our mats. Can give ourselves a little wiggle if we would like. Hands are still underneath of our shoulders. We'll pull those buddies back behind us. Good. And then when we're ready, we'll inhale, scoop the chest forward, and then lift into a baby cobra from here. Good. And then let's press back to that child's pose. Good. Inhaling up to our little plank. Exhale, we'll lower down. Inhale, scoop into our cobra. And press back to our child's pose. Inhaling up. Exhale, we lower down. Inhale, little back bend. And then exhale all the way back, rounding in that child's pose. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, coming on up. And we'll lower down. Lifting that chest. And then we'll press back to our child's pose. Good. From here, arms are out in front of us, nice and wide. Fingers are pressing into the ground, pulling the shoulders away from our ears. Breathing into our belly, feeling our belly press into our thighs as we inhale all the way into that diaphragm, and then we'll tuck those toes underneath of our butts. Keeping our hands and our feet where they are, we'll lift our tails up toward the skies, bending the knees, lengthening in the spine. Strong shoulders, strong anchors in our hands and our feet. And then we can pedal those heels one down at a time, waking up our calves, opening up in our hamstrings. And then we'll bend both knees, lengthen again, and then begin to press both of those heels down toward our mat. We may not get all the way there, but we're working in that direction. And now let's lift up our right leg for a three-legged dog. Good. We'll kick ourselves in the bum and open up that hip to the right, lifting the knee up toward the sky. Good. And then slowly, let's bring the knee into our chest. We'll shift forward and we'll step that foot in between our hands into a lunge here. Lunge can be on that back toe, or if we would like, we can lower the knee down. Good. Let's leave that left hand on the floor. Lift up the right. Sink the hips down. Open up the chest. And then slowly coming back down. Hands find the floor. Looking forward in that lunge. Find that balance. Let's lift our hands up nice and high. Good. And then slowly exhale. Barely touch the hands to the mat. And then inhale up. Good. Exhale. Slowly going down. And now inhale. Let's extend that right leg as well. Good. We'll turn toward the left into a wide-legged stance. Good. Exhale, sitting down into a wide-legged squat. Hands can come down to the thighs, sitting low, keeping the back straight, chest is forward and proud. Good. And little shoulder tips here. Exhale, lower one shoulder down, looking over the other one. Inhale to the center, and then exhale over to the other side. Good. Back to the center one more time, each side. Exhaling. Little twist. And back to the center. And last one. Good. Back to the center. Let's inhale. Star pose. Opening up our arms, our legs, lifting our heart. And now let's point those toes right out in front of us. We'll hinge at the hips and we'll come down into a wide-legged forward fold here. Good, let's soften those knees. We'll point that right toe toward the front of our mat. We'll just slowly walk our hands forward and find that lunge again. Good. And now let's inhale, hands come up high. One more time. Bringing the hands together at our hearts, pressing into the palms, lifting the heart, keeping everything good and strong. Let's take that left elbow, bring it all the way around to that right thigh. And then slowly we'll release back to the center. Hands can come back down to our mats. Let's step all the way back with that right foot into a three-legged dog again. Bring that knee into our chest, hover forward into a plank, and we'll slowly lower the knee down behind our right wrist into a pigeon pose. Flexing this right foot, softening the left behind us. We'll pull this left hip forward so both hips are facing the top of our mat as best we can. Take a breath, a few breaths, however many we need to settle here for a moment. And then when we're ready, only when we're ready, we'll walk our hands forward. We can lower down to our elbows in a little sphinxy, or we can fold all the way down. If we get to a spot and we say, that's not my favorite, we can always back up, find what is. Stay here for a few more breaths. And then on our next inhale, let's walk those hands back if we are not already there. We'll tuck the left toe back behind us. We'll step back for a downward facing dog. Take some time, paddle it out. Give ourselves a wiggle waggle. We'll begin to settle into our downward facing dog here. Keep that spine long. And now from here, let's walk those hands backwards towards our feet for a forward fold. Just drop the head. You can even soften the knees a little bit and hold our elbows if we would like. Good, and then bend the knees. Release those elbows round in our back as we slowly, slowly, slowly roll our way up into Tadasana, mountain pose. Good. Let's soften the knees. Begin to hinge at the hips and melt our way down into our forward fold again. Inhale to a half lift here. Long back, long legs. Exhale, we'll fold. And then we'll walk those hands back out toward downward facing dog. Good. Let's lift up the left leg. Three-legged dog here. Lengthen from the end of our heel all the way to our fingertips. And then we'll kick ourselves in the bum. Open up that hip. Up. With that knee to the sky. Good. And then slowly we'll come back to the center, bring the knee into our chest, shift forward and step in between our hands for a lunge here. Sink into that lunge. Lift the heart. Keep that right hand on the floor. Let's lift up the left. Good, and back down. Find our balance. Inhale to our high lunge. Good, exhale, slowly lower just to barely touch with those fingertips. And then inhale back up. Good, exhale down. Inhale up. Good. Exhale down. And this time, inhale up. We'll lengthen in that left leg. And then we'll turn toward the right. This time, you're going to watch my back. Actually, I'm just going to turn. Opening up, star pose here. Good. Exhale, sit down into that big wide-legged squat. Hands can come to the thighs. Lengthen in that back. Exhale, shoulder dips. One shoulder down, looking over the other. And then back to the center. Exhaling to the other side. and to the center. One more time each side. And back. Last one. And back to the center. Let's inhale, lift high, star pose, open up, super wide and proud. And then we'll point those toes out in front of us. Bring those hands to our hearts, soften the knees, and we'll fold forward. Good. Slowly, we'll come all the way back up. Good. Exhale. Let's slowly fold forward again this time. Flat back as we swan dive down. Hands come underneath of our shoulders here. Weight goes into our toes so that we can keep our hips in the same plane as our ankles and knees. Good. From here, we'll keep our right hand on the floor, lifting up the left. Hand back down. Other side, right hand goes up. Hand back down. And now let's point that left toe toward the top of our mat. We'll walk ourselves around to our lunge. Inhale, high lunge again. Good. Bring those hands to our heart. Sink down into that lunge. And when we're ready, we'll take that right elbow all the way around to the left thigh, pressing into our palms. To help open up those shoulders. Keep that back leg active. And now let's slowly come back to the center. Hands find the floor. We'll step back, three-legged dog, all the way back. Good. And now let's bring that knee into our chest again and set ourselves up for pigeon on this side, lowering the knee behind the wrist, flexing that left foot, softening the right, getting those hips even and level. Take our time and use our breath to find where we are today on this side. Do a couple more breaths here. And then when we're ready, we'll walk those hands back underneath of our shoulders. We'll tuck the right toes. We'll step all the way back, downward facing dog. Time for a little wiggle waggle here. That's a very technical and yogi term, wiggle waggle. And then we'll take a few steps forward with our feet. We'll take a few steps back with our hands, and we'll find ourselves in about the center of our mat into a forward fold here. Bending the knees, rounding the back, just dropping the head, letting the arms dangle. And as we exhale, let that butt lower down towards our heels. Roll ourselves up into a little ball, and then we'll walk the hands out forward. Let the knees come down to the mat. Tuck the chin, forehead comes down to the mat. Hands come back to our toes. Finding ourselves in a little rabbit pose. And then we'll swish our feet over to one side, lower ourselves down to a seated position. Feet will come out in front of us. Not for very long, because we'll just rock back onto our backs. Knees into our chest, hug them tight. And then we'll release that left leg, holding both hands onto our right shin, hugging that buddy tight, tight, tight in towards us. And then think about keeping that left leg long on our mats. Good. And then we'll release the pressure on that right leg. We'll guide the knee across our body for a spinal twist here. And now from here, if we would like, we can stay here, or we can bend that left knee, bring our right hand down, hold on to those toes as we continue to twist. So the left hand can touch the right knee, right hand holds on to those left toes, and then we think about really working those shoulders back down onto the mat, keeping the twist, a little quad stretch here, maybe an outer hip stretch. A little multitasking here. And then we'll release both legs. Bring the knees back to the center. Roll up into our ball. We'll do all of that on the other side. We'll release that right leg, holding the left tight, tight, tight into our body. Right leg is lengthening out below us. Maybe we feel a little release in that psoas or in the glute or both. And then we'll release that left leg. We'll guide it across our body for the twist. And then again, if we would like, we can bend that right knee, grab onto those toes with the left hand, and then lower the shoulders back down into our mat. And now let's release both legs. We'll come back into our little egg, round in that back. Tuck the chin. And even lift up our tail off of the mat. And then inhale, let's lift our legs up to the sky, reach our fingers up to the sky, wiggle the fingers and the toes, roll around in those wrists and the ankles. And then exhale slowly. Lowering our arms down above our heads, our legs below us. Make ourselves as long as we possibly can here. Now let's take our right hand, hold on to our left wrist, and we'll gently encourage our shoulders to move over to the right. We'll walk our feet over there as well, keeping our hips where they are, and we'll find ourselves in a little bit of a crescent shape or a banana. And then we'll release back to the center. Another big stretch. And then left hand to the right wrist. Encourage those shoulders over to the left. Walking those feet over. Or banana on this side. Opening up the side body. Good. And then releasing back to our stretch in the center. One last deep inhale here, and then exhale. Find ourselves in Shavasana. And just release everything to a comfortable posture here. We close our eyes. And we breathe deeply in and out through our nose. When we are ready, we deepen our breath. We bring gentle movement back into our bodies to become aware of our space. And when it is time, we'll bring our knees into our chest. We'll roll over onto our side. And then we'll help ourselves up to a comfortable seated position. Take a moment to check in with how we are feeling right now. After our practice, after our Shavasana, and we remind ourselves that from this moment, we are starting completely over. We are a new self, a new day. And we bring our hands together at our hearts, bow to ourselves in gratitude for all of the gifts that we just gave ourselves. And I thank you for joining me, for sticking with me, for allowing me to help you through your practice. I hope that you feel even just a little bit better than when we started. Let's continue this theme of taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of everything else around us. I wish you a very, very happy day filled with joy and kindness. The light and the divine in me recognizes and respects the light and the divine in you. And when we are together, whether physically or virtually, we are one. Namaste.